Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Well, today I'm going to do a little video about a couple things that I see photographers doing that I just think makes you look kind of amateurish or new. Maybe you don't know what you're doing, and there's two things. First, let's talk about lens hoods. So, lens hoods, and this is a Lumix 12 to 35 millimeter f2.8 micro four thirds lens. It comes with a lens hood. Actually, one of the things I really like about Panasonic is when you buy a lens, you get the lens hood. They don't do this stuff that Canon does, where unless you're buying an L lens, you don't get a hood. You got to buy it separately. But the point of a lens hood is to reduce flare. Okay, and essentially, if you're outside and the sun's, off outside the frame, this keeps that oblique light from causing flare. Flare is not the same thing as ghosting. I see people use these terms interchangeably, but ghosting is when you see a little image of the aperture or multiple images of the aperture in the frame. And a lot of photographers like that effect. So it's not necessarily a deal breaker on a lens, but some people don't want that. So the hood is probably not going to help you with that, because usually when that happens, the sun is pretty close to coming directly into the lens or whatever light source you're using. But the light coming from off center is a problem. So why then do I see photographers running around taking pictures like this? Got me. My attitude is, if you don't want to use a hood, that's fine. Modern lenses are pretty flare resistant. You can get away without using them. You can always use your hand if you see flare. Flare is just flare as opposed to ghosting. Flare is a haze. You see a haze in your image, you can always stick your hand up between the lens and the light source, the sun, if you're outside, and just make sure it doesn't get into the frame, and you'll see that haze disappear. So you're moving your hand around, the haze will disappear. So it raises the question, why do people do this? One of the reasons I think people might do this is that they want to keep the lens cap on the lens when they're not using it. They're just walking around, they want the lens cap on the lens. If you have the hood facing the way it's supposed to be facing, makes it a little harder to get that lens cap off. So it did occur to me there is a reason for doing this. But if you're walking around taking photographs, the lens cap should be in your bag. It just should be in your bag. You don't, oh, there's a shot. Oh, you're trying to fumble and get the lens cap off. Why are you doing that? And if you're worried about damage to the front of your lens, use a filter. Most modern filters are pretty good and don't really affect flare as much as they used to. This is a Hoya NXT Plus, I think. Just a regular protective, maybe UV filter. Doesn't really cause an issue. And if it does, you can always take it off. I mean, if you're doing a scene, maybe the sun's low in the sky and you notice that it's causing a problem, just take the filter off. Also for cleaning, if you're cleaning the front of the lens all the time, you risk, of course, damaging that lens, especially if a little piece of grit gets on there. Let's say you're on a sandy beach, grit gets on there, boom, that's a problem. But really, yeah, if you're not using the hood, just leave it at home. There's no point in having it with you if you don't want to use it. What's the second thing? Well, the second thing involves flash. So I have right here, this is a Godox V480 that I bought about a month ago. I also have the V860 Mark III. What I've found is that flash is kind of overkill for everyday use. So when I'm going out and doing photojournalism, it's just too much. This is the perfect sized flash. And so let me mount this on here. Also, the V480 comes with a little Tupperware attachment, and so you can pop that on there if you want to. But here's the thing. I see photographers and they're shooting outside and they have this bounce head pointing to the sky. It's a bounce head. Using it where there's nothing to bounce your flash off of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think they may think that because if they're taking a photo of people that somehow that's going to be softer than using direct flash. If you're using fill flash correctly, you should have the intensity of your flash turned down to where it's just a little kiss of light on the faces, just enough to brighten them up a bit. That is not your main light. Your main light is all of this soft light from the environment. If you're out on a sunny day, you should be in a shady spot, unless you're going for a dramatic look, or you got the sun behind people and you want to brighten up their faces a bit. But it's not going to make a heck of a lot of difference doing direct flash if that's what your intent is. Now, you can, if that's a problem, get these little mini soft boxes. So this is from Altura, and this is a little mini soft box that you can pop over the front of your flash, and it's going to soften the light somewhat. If it doesn't, Altura makes a big one, right? You can still use this. It's going to be a little clunky if you put it on the front of a flash, you know, that your hand holding, but you can still do it. I don't use this one as much. If I do, I might put the flash on a stand or on a little mini tripod I have, but you got to get these things pretty close to give you soft light. But again, if you're pointing this thing up to the sky outside, there's not really any point to that. And this is nothing new. I remember back in film days, and this would have been probably maybe in the 90s. Used to read Modern Photography. This was one of these photography magazines in the United States. There was also Popular Photography. And there was an article in one of those two magazines way back then in the film era talking about this very thing, and then essentially saying, you know, if you're worried about this light being too harsh, get one of these softbox modifiers, because back then they had them back then. They were usually plastic. I think Photoflex made some. And I was like, do that, because you're wasting battery power outside if you're pointing these things anywhere other than on what your subject is. So those two things, I think, you know, I see people doing this and I think, you know, maybe I should do a video about this. What are your thoughts? Leave comments down below. Maybe somebody has a point that I haven't thought of for these two things. And, you know, if so, leave a comment down below, and I'll respond to that as soon as I can. Going to go out and do a shoot today in downtown Oak Park. It's the Saturday before Christmas, so there's all kinds of Christmas festivities going on, so that'll be fun. I'm Todd Banner. I will see you in the next video.